it's streaming. So I'm gonna... Well, let me put the clock. Hopefully it doesn't take me 1.5 hours to do this. So I'm gonna structure the videos about functions. And I'm gonna do a pretty simple explanation for the first. Because when I talk about scopes later, I'm gonna talk about functions again. I'm gonna have to explain functions before I explain methods. Yeah, so this is the plan that I have, I think, for the videos. This is something else, I don't know why I wrote down this. Oh, I think I was studying with ChatGPT on the Python interpreter, and I wrote down in this file. But yeah. So I'm gonna do functions, then next video is gonna be about libraries and packages, which is also gonna be a simple explanation probably. And then this video is gonna be hard, which is explaining the methods, because I'm gonna have to show a bunch of different methods and spend a bunch of time studying. So I guess I'll do a simple function. That's sum true. And I'm gonna explain the return. Explain return arguments, then keyword arguments. I wonder if I should explain that or not. And maybe I should probably also explain callback functions, because I think some of the methods take callback functions. Oh, now I don't remember if in JavaScript is like this. Yeah. So probably gonna talk about the syntax first. Then talk about the arguments. Then talk about keyword arguments and positional keyword arguments. Yeah, I think the args in Python is just for arguments, any argument, and the keyword arguments is for keyword arguments. So maybe I'm gonna research this. What is the difference? Because I don't remember really well. Or maybe I should ask ChatGPT. Let me just ask ChatGPT. Yeah, that's the difference. So, briefly explain the syntax for both Python and JavaScript. Then talk about arguments and the return statements. I'm not sure if JavaScript has an equivalent. I don't think it has. No, but it does have. There are also things like the spread operator and the indentation in Python that I'm not sure if I should make. Maybe I should make a video to explain only these nuances in things. I was thinking about explaining indentation on this video about functions, but I'm not sure if it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes more sense to... Yeah, I think it might make more sense to make a... Because I didn't want to make a separate video only for indentations. It felt that it would be out of place as well. So I think it's a good idea to put these nuances together, but so far I can only remember about the three dots operator in JavaScript, the spread operator, and the indentation in Python to put on the same video. I also realized that I didn't talk about commas in the operators video, so maybe I'll talk about commas too. Because these things should, I think to explain them really well, it's necessary to study more about how they work at a fundamental level. And it's not too relevant to people that are just starting out, I think. As long as they understand that to separate things with comma, I think it's fine. Maybe I'll briefly talk about this as well. This is slightly annoying because they have to think about a good example. We'll go back to the previous one. Yeah, we just got this true here. And also I didn't talk about comments, so that's another thing that I can add to the video. So I'm probably gonna make a video only for this kind of stuff that doesn't fit anywhere, and it's probably gonna be after I explain a bunch of different things already. And then I think I'm also gonna talk about the installation, but I'm just gonna talk about environment variables instead, because I think anyone can. It's pretty easy to figure out how to install Python and this kind of stuff, but to know about the environment variables, I think, at least I didn't know about them or how they work for a long time, and it's hard to find. So I'm gonna make a video about installation, but it's actually gonna be about environment variables, because that way people that are starting out can click on the video and then they will learn right away. And then I have to explain the difference. So maybe I'll write down here. Arguments is maybe central T words arguments. At first I have to explain what a keyword argument is. Oh yeah, there's arguments. Forgot about this. Does not support keyword arguments. Yeah, so I'm gonna explain in Python what the difference, and then I'm gonna talk about JavaScript, that the equivalent is arguments, and that this is the special keyword, and it's not as powerful because it doesn't accept keyword arguments. Yeah, I think that's pretty much about it, what I want to say. I'll also have to explain that is like a box. Box analogy to explain why functions are useful. And then I have to show... Yeah, I was thinking about doing an example where I'm gonna edit this stuff as I do the video. I think I'm gonna separate in several different clips. So each bullet point here of the outline is gonna be a separate clip, and then I'll do everything on the same file. But what I think I'm gonna do is to write some code here, and then let's say number equals 0, cow. Oh, what name can I use? Because then I'm gonna remove the function, and then I'm gonna explain that if the function wasn't there, then the code would run before. But if the function is there, then you can make it so that the code runs anywhere you want instead, and that's the point of the function. So it's like you're encapsulating the code into a box, so that you can decide whenever you're gonna take the code out of the box to run it. And in normal circumstances, the code is run sequentially. So the point of having functions is just encapsulate things into a box, and then that box has inputs and outputs. And then maybe the box analogy is better to explain before. Well, actually, yeah, I can explain the syntax. Talk about the syntax first, like the structure of the thing. But the problem is, I think I'm gonna explain the syntax, the structure, and then I'm gonna briefly talk about the arguments, but then say that I have to make the analogy of the box first. Then I explain the box thing, and then I'll go back to explaining the arguments. Yeah, because the analogy of the box is gonna be good to explain what are arguments. It's like you're putting a bunch of things into a box, and then you have to decide, because after you put it on the box, you can only access through calling the box. No, maybe I have to think about a better way to say that. How can I say this? So when you're making the box, you have to decide what kind of stuff you can put on the box. So the arguments is kind of like you're drawing some shapes in the box. So let's say if you draw a square in the box, then later on you can't put a triangle in it, because when you made the box, it was only with a square. And you also can't get anything out of the box if you don't put the square, if you made it with a square. So when you make the box, you make some patterns that allow you to put stuff into the box and receive something from the box. I think that's the best way to explain it. It would be better if I can think about an analogy that this actually happens in the real world. Almost sure that it does happen. It's somewhere. The thing that is coming to my mind is those machines of getting toys, but that's not exactly. Well, it's kind of like that if you think about it, because on that machine you put a coin, and then but it's not exactly the same because it's not guaranteed. But there are some machines like that you're guaranteed to gain a ticket, for example. So maybe that would be a good, that would be a better way. Yeah, I think that's probably a better analogy. So what's the name of those machines? Because then I can explain that instead of putting money, you're gonna put whatever you want inside, whatever you design the machine to do, in which this case is the function. So the design is the arguments, and depending on which type of argument you put there, is gonna, in order to be able to use the machine, you have to pass the arguments or the specific coins that you designed the machine to accept. Yeah, that's a good analogy. So what is the name of the machine? Arcade machines. Yeah, that's the stuff that I'm thinking about. Arcade machines. Yeah, so I'm gonna put a picture of one of these in the video. And then the return statements. So arguments are like the coin in the arcade machines. And the return statements is what you get out of the machine. In case of the arcades, yeah, but so I think I'm gonna say that instead of getting out instead of being able to play a game, you get something out of the machine. It's kind of like one of those basketballs machines, I think. That's what I'm gonna say. Case of the basketball game machine, you get basketballs to be, so you can play the game. What you get depends what you put in the statements. Oh, also destructuring, I'm gonna have to talk about it in JavaScript, so maybe I can put there with all the other stuff that is weird to talk about in different videos. But maybe destructuring deserves a video of its own, because I think it's I'm not sure how difficult it is to explain that. I'm gonna have to think about it, but maybe it doesn't because it's very simple. And the reason why I'm thinking about this is because I'm probably gonna explain that you can return multiple values in a function, both in JavaScript and in Python. Yeah, but maybe I think I'm gonna say that, but I'm not gonna go in depth into that because I don't think it's that important, and I don't wanna bother with that. These people can look it up for themselves. And maybe I shouldn't even say that. Maybe save it for later. Because then I'm gonna have to go in a tangent, and then also I'm gonna have to research here to show the small differences in the ways you can return multiple values, which is not that important. And this is the thing that I'm trying to capture, which is these things are annoying because it's like I feel like I have to talk about them, but in reality they are not that important as long as you understand the concept, the overall concept of how it works. So you don't need to know all these small nuances of all the different ways you can return multiple values from a function. But it is important to know the underlying fundamental, and then I have to study more to really understand the underlying fundamental of how is it possible for, because I know in Rust the only way to return multiple values is with tuples, and in Python and JavaScript you can return with lists or objects, or and maybe in JavaScript you can return with just using the comma as well. Oh, I just remembered that I forgot to talk about the ternary operator. Damn. So maybe I should go back. I shouldn't even make the video about functions. I should go back to making the video about the ternary. Yeah, because it said on the video of operators, it said that I was going to explain the coalescence operator once I explained the if else statements, and then I explained that, but I didn't go back into it. So I think actually I'm gonna change the video that I'm gonna make now that I remember this. I completely forgot about this. Explain ternary operators. Talk about coalescence operator. So what I'm gonna do is film the video of functions before, because that one is also gonna, I wanna finish studying the other stuff that I have to study. I study a bunch of them, but there's still 9 files that I have to finish with the ChatGPT thing. And where is it? Yeah, these are the files that are left. I studied a bunch of them after the stream yesterday, but I want to finish this today here. So I just want to film at least one video and then finish this stuff. Then maybe if I have time, I go back and study this thing as well. Okay, so let me go back to thinking about functions. Yeah, so I think I will briefly talk about it, but I'm not gonna explain about returning multiple values. But here I was doing something else. Yeah, because the thing is, I have to think about another example, and I don't want to do that, of code, but maybe I should actually. There has to be one example of some code that's, by encapsulating into a function, is gonna be different than just leaving it without the function. But maybe I don't need to do that. Yeah, because the thing is, I don't wanna, like I said before, I don't wanna go into depth, because in the video about scopes, I'm gonna talk about global variables, local variables, and then I think I'm gonna have to study about namespaces again to remember how it works. It's always confusing for me, the stuff about public variables, private variables, and things like that. because I've seen the difference multiple different times and I studied multiple different times, but it's a difficult thing to remember exactly the context of each one. It's kind of like visibility modifiers in Solidity, where I know I studied, but it's still, if off the top of my head, I can't really know the difference between them because it's small differences. I don't know, just have to look it up again. But how can I explain this? Or maybe I can do this instead. Yeah, that makes more sense. And then I don't know why I thought like I needed to put the variable there. And then I can explain. Let's see, number 2 was done. Yeah, but this is not a good example of removing this code here and then just saying that if I didn't have these variables, if I didn't have the function, then this would run first. It's not a good example. Yeah, let me think about it. It's hard to think about an example that it isn't too complicated and that I can illustrate this point of being able to run the code in a box instead of running on top. Maybe this is not a good example because it's more useful if you don't wanna repeat yourself. So if you have code that you want to run multiple times. So maybe that's a lot better to. So yeah, some results. That's what I'm gonna do. But in this case it is not. But I can do that just to illustrate the point. actually. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. It's the easiest thing to do. And probably the best as well. So I'm gonna talk about why it's useful. And I'm gonna use this to show that here I'm adding number 2 to sum multiple times. And I can do that calling a function. And I'm gonna say, imagine if you had a bunch of code that you wanted to run, not simply add number 2 to another value, then you would have to rewrite all of the code. But if instead you have a function, you can put all of the code on the box and you can reuse the code as many times as you want, and it becomes a lot more efficient. All I have to do is just call the function. And then explain how I call the function. The issue is the arguments here, because to explain how to call, I'm gonna have to touch on the arguments. That's the thing that is kind of difficult to explain. So where do I put the arguments on the explanation? And here I also think I have to do the same thing here. Yeah, and when explaining scope, I'm gonna have to talk about let and var, I think. Should explain the difference in scope. Yeah, but I think that's pretty much it, unless I'm missing something. Yeah, it's fine. Maybe I'll do one more here, just to... Yeah, so talk about the syntax first, then explain why functions are useful. Put yourself. Then make the arcade analogy and explain arguments in the arcade analogy. Then talk about arguments and the return statements. Yeah, on the arcade analogy, I'm gonna explain the return statement as well. Then explain the difference between keywords and arguments. So I'm gonna put this in the context of the arcade machine as well. Say is like designing machines, so the keyword arguments is difficult. I don't think the analogy is very good to explain keyword arguments. It's like designing the machine. So it accepts any coin with a default value, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. So the input always receives the same value. Yeah, so maybe I can make it work, but it's difficult to explain. So the keyword arguments would be if you're putting the coin, if you're designing the machine so that you can place coins that always have. So let's say you can place $1 that always have the value of 2. So we're always gonna put $2 because that's what we want to do. So it's a coin with the default value, and the difference in arguments is the difference in coins. So from dollar to euros, for example. And the default value is when you always want to deposit the coin with the same value. But the argument doesn't say anything. Default arguments doesn't say anything about. So the keyword arguments is when you always want the coins to have the same value, and the other one, the arguments, it doesn't matter what the value is. You're just allowing to deposit multiple different coins. Yeah, I think that's a very good analogy. So let me think about if I'm forgetting anything. I think that's pretty much everything that I want to explain. Also, even if there is another way in JavaScript to do keyword arguments, I don't think it's worth spending a bunch of time talking about it now. Maybe in some very future videos. Like after I finish all this playlist, I talk about it. Yeah, but I think that's pretty much it. Oh, callback functions. So should I explain callback functions or not? I think that's... I think I'm gonna explain it in the end, and I'm gonna use the same files. But then... maybe I should write it down here. Whatever. And obviously, I'm not gonna talk about decorators as well, because that would be too much. Actually. Oh, I just realized that I should put the name difference. Oh, I'm putting this stuff on Saturday, the other function. Or maybe not, just the indentation that is incorrect here. Yeah, I think I'm gonna talk about callback functions on the end. I'm gonna separate it in a different clip, and then I'm gonna close the video with that. And I think that's how it works. Pretty sure that's how it works. Maybe I should research more about this. Just to make sure I'm not fucking it up. Yeah. I think I'm gonna copy this example. I wonder if you can translate the code. Yeah, it's gonna do the same thing. Nice. So probably what I should be doing is using ChatGPT instead, and then just translate the code from Python to JavaScript. As this is much better than what I did there. Yeah, it's the same thing. I think that's pretty much all that I want to talk about. So I'm gonna stop here, I think, and then go make these clips, and then I'm probably gonna come back after I'm done filming everything. I don't think I'm gonna edit today. I wanna finish the stuff first. So if I finish all the study topics there, the files, then I'm probably gonna try to edit this. Yeah, I think I'm gonna structure the if-else statements. Not if-else statement, the ternary operator video, and then I'm gonna edit both of them tomorrow or something like that. Yeah, but I'll have to, because I think it's gonna take a long time to finish all of this. It's probably gonna take a couple of hours, so I'm probably gonna be exhausted, so I might do the ternary video off stream. Yeah, but I'm probably gonna come back in a few minutes or a few hours. So yeah, see you soon.